Jesus' mother is at a wedding in Cana, and Jesus and his disciples have also been invited. John's Gospel is unusual in not naming Jesus' mother, but perhaps it's because he doesn't want her confused with the other Marys. Cana is about 8 miles north of Nazareth. This is a miracle which is unique to John's Gospel, meaning it does not occur in the other Gospels. Jesus performs his first sign here and will return near the end of chapter 4 to perform his second sign, which is the healing of the official's son. Women usually sat nearer the place where food and drink was prepared, so this may be why she learns of the problem before Jesus. But why does she come to him? It could be because, as guests, they ought to help pay for the wedding. But perhaps there is more to it. Jesus' reply, which is cryptic and standoffish, indicates that despite what sounds like a refusal, is really him going into ministry mode. Her response, which is directed to the servants, echoes that of Pharaoh in Genesis, when he tells his servants to do whatever Joseph tells them to. It seems to suggest a deeper faith in Jesus and whatever he is about to do. The very large water jars were reserved for purification, and Jesus violates this custom by ordering them filled for another purpose. There are 3 points being made here. The first is superabundance. Jesus' ministry, which begins here with this first sign, will bring overwhelming joy. The second is the wine itself. Wine was associated with celebration generally, but could also bring to mind the Messianic banquet. The third is that Jesus' ministry will transcend customs, traditions, and revered institutions, such as the temple. Rather than saying these things have no value, Jesus brings the very thing which they were created to point towards. The first Passover of 3 is mentioned in the Gospel, and it is near, so Jesus travels south to Jerusalem for it. This was the first of the 3 major pilgrim festivals. There was Passover, or Pesach, which combined the Passover meal and then the festival of unleavened bread, Matzot. Then there was Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, because it was 50 days after Passover. Then there was the big one, Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of the Lord, which rounded out the year. These were known as the pilgrim festivals because everybody was expected to come up to Jerusalem for them. Another festival was called Hanukkah, which means dedication. This was a winter festival which celebrated the rededication of the temple in 164 BC, after it was defiled by the Syrian king Antiochus IV. Jesus is in Jerusalem for this festival in chapter 10. As I mentioned in the previous video, the festivals are important for John in bringing out meaning to Jesus' ministry. They also provide us with a longer chronology for it. Because there are 3 Passovers, it must be somewhere between 2.5 to 3 years long. Jesus cleanses the temple. The psalm which is linked to this action to explain it connects Jesus with the righteous sufferer in one of David's compositions. This shows that the way Jesus will cleanse and restore Israel will be through suffering and death, not simply through easy conquest. The Jews demand a sign from Jesus, and Jesus gives them another cryptic response. They misunderstand him, thinking he is literally talking about the temple. This is typical of Jesus in John's Gospel, where he often deliberately confuses who he is talking to, usually in order to draw them into deeper conversation. We see this in particular with Nicodemus in the next chapter and the woman at the well in chapter 4. The disciples remember things about Jesus after he is raised. Later in the book of Glory, Jesus will tell them about the role of the Holy Spirit, how he will come to them and lead them into all truth, helping them remember and understand things. These things must have been some of those which he revealed to them. John unexpectedly uses the plural signs which Jesus was doing, which was why many were believing in him. On his scheme, Jesus has only done 1 sign, the second one coming again in Cana later in chapter 4. But on the other hand, in chapter 20, he will say that Jesus did many signs, which he did not write down in this book, and so he has made his selection quite deliberately.